Fearless Disease.
We're going to recap a little bit today when it comes to Trump. He returned and dominated in 2025 for his second term. Tariff threats, they shocked the market, but AI boomed. The policy was fueled by record gains, but not just money. I mean, he did a lot with trying to end war. He said a lot of bad stuff or nice stuff through tweets, but we're going to recap just a little bit over the year of 2025.
The year started with a deadly terror attack in New Orleans. In the early hours of New Year's Day, an Islamic terrorist with ties to ISIS drove a truck into a crowd of people, then opened fire before being killed by police. 15 people lost their lives, including the attacker. Just a week later, a series of massive wildfires engulfed much of Southern California, centered near the city of Los Angeles. The fires burned for 24 days, destroying entire towns and neighborhoods. At least 31 were killed, and the economic losses topped $50 billion.
That was when they talked about, of course, Gavin Newsom didn't want to do anything when it came to California. He was going back and forth with Trump. He seemed like he had everything handled, but obviously he didn't.
Repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Donald Trump became just the second president in American history to be sworn into a second non-consecutive term. And he hit the ground running, immediately signing dozens of executive orders aimed at undoing Biden-era policies and implementing his Make America Great Again agenda. Many of those orders, and others to come, tested the limits of executive authority, with Democrats pushing back through the courts. The Make America Healthy Again movement had a major impact in 2025, eliminating hundreds of harmful ingredients from the food supply, while pushing food manufacturers to take out the dyes and other chemicals.
And it's so funny how they fought against that Make America Healthy Again, with RFK wanting to do this so bad. RFK Jr., I apologize, sir, put some respect on his name. But he wanted to push such a healthy agenda, and so many people were so against that. Ready to get like you heard, the certain processed foods, the dyes out of food to make America healthy, not just to be the overall healthy, but not understanding that the number one killer that was going around, not police shootings, was obesity and health like that. So trying to get rid of obesity, because obesity would lead to heart attacks, hypertension, diabetes. He wanted to eliminate that so much, but the Democrats fought against that so bad. It's very sad. It's weird.
It also created significant controversy over its targeting of vaccines. HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. claims they're a major cause of autism. Almost immediately, vaccination rates began to decline. And in June, Kennedy fired all 17 members of the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee. The replacements have since voted to overturn several vaccine recommendations, including COVID-19, hepatitis B for babies, and some flu vaccines.
And wow, what a bad guy to stop wanting to put unknown substances in people's bodies, man, and stop autism, man. It's a horrible, horrible administration, man. What the Democrats would say.
In Gaza, a ceasefire was declared in January after President Trump sent his envoy Steve Witkoff to pressure the Israelis. It lasted until March, when Israel began a major new offensive. Another ceasefire was reached in October. That remains in effect as diplomats work on phase 2 of the peace agreements. But it was a different story in Ukraine. The president's push for peace hit significant roadblocks.
We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this.
Including a fiery Oval Office meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky.
And you're gambling with the lives of millions of people.
The two presidents argued back and forth on live TV about whether Zelensky showed enough gratitude for America's support. Ultimately, the relationship was repaired, and there's now a new round of talks underway. Gaza wasn't the only Middle East conflict in 2025. Over the summer, Israel and Iran engaged in back-and-forth airstrikes over the Iranian nuclear program. And then, early on a Sunday morning in the month of June, the U.S. hit the 3 main Iranian enrichment sites in a series of devastating blows. It was called Operation Midnight Hammer. The Pentagon says Iran's nuclear program was set back at least 2 years. The world lost a spiritual leader. Pope Francis passed away. He was mourned as a pope of the people who re-engaged Christians around the world and reached out to other faiths along the way. Just 2 weeks later, the conclave to pick his successor began, and after intense speculation, the College of Cardinals elected the first American pope in the history.
Honestly, I wasn't, of course, it's sad that the Pope had died, but some of the things he already said like maybe a year or two ago that he, of course, was not, he was accepting of all LGBT marriages and stuff like that. I don't understand why he would do that. We already know that the clear in the scripture what is the do's and don'ts of when it comes to same-sex marriage, and that Pope that unfortunately passed away, rest in peace, he was all for that. He was all for same-sex marriage. It was very weird.
History of the Catholic Church. He was from Chicago. Robert Prevost began his papacy in May. He's now known as Pope Leo the 24th. Almost immediately after taking office, President Trump began a mass deportation program. ICE raids became common sights in immigrant communities as hundreds of thousands were sent back to their countries of origin. The deportations initially focused on immigrant criminals, but they've now broadened to include groups like farm workers and those under temporary protected status.
Exactly. We're always going to be for that. We're not against illegals, but we want immigrants to come in that come in legally. If you're coming in illegally, I think you should go ahead and go and then come back when you have the proper paperwork. But the ones that came in the right, correct way, went through the right paperwork, took the test, became actual U.S. citizens, salute to you, and I appreciate you for doing things the correct way.
ICE raids were met with protests, including some that turned violent. In Los Angeles, clashes between demonstrators and law enforcement prompted President Trump to deploy thousands of National Guard members. Their mission was to protect federal property and help ICE deal with violent protesters during immigration raids. That became a standard tactic. In at least 7 cities, ICE crackdowns were accompanied by federal troops. And in Washington, those troops never left. President Trump claims they're needed to secure the nation's capital. A lawsuit challenging their deployment is making its way through the courts. Over the 4th of July weekend, deadly flooding in central Texas. At least 135 Americans losing their lives when the Guadalupe River overflowed. Many of the casualties there were young girls from a Christian summer camp. A shocking tragedy in our nation's capital. 2 West Virginia National Guard members were targeted by an alleged Islamic militant. Guard member Sarah Beckstrom was killed, while Andrew Wolf was seriously injured. Law enforcement says it was a deliberate ambush. The shooter is now in custody. He reportedly worked for the CIA in Afghanistan and came to the U.S. in September of 2021. President Trump immediately halting immigration applications for all Afghan nationals, and asylum claims for most third world countries are now barred.
You had to stop that. If you've seen a good amount of people coming in that's trying to harm American citizens, you got to slow it down. Not saying he's going to stop it forever like he did. He stopped it just for a little bit so he can work the kinks out, make sure the processing and people coming in is more strenuous and more strict, so we can bring in people that actually want to thrive in America and not just try to hurt people.
Now looking ahead to the new year in 2020.
No, that was a good roundup. They did pretty well. He did a lot of good things, and some people say they did a lot of bad things in his first year of being our second-term president of the United States. But shout out to him. My predictions: 2026 midterms are gonna hinge on an economy. Tariffs are going to spike inflation, or maybe the jobs will be able to boom back. But I know one thing, tariffs are a good thing for America. I think they're going to spike it up, like I said, a little bit, but it's going to level out. Everything levels out after a while. Smash that like, tap the next video is here on the screen, subscribe and hit that bell. The CashApp FearlessDisease always in the description if you're rocking with the movement. We'll see you on the next one. Please stay rich and stay fearless.